All right, so yesterday on Monday, 76ers list Paul George as probable for his game tonight against the Orlando Magic in the Emirates NBA Cup, but now Paul George is listed as out. He must have slipped on something around his giant mansion while he was podcasting and twisted his ankle. Um, so yeah, Sixers are out. A few players against the Orlando Magic. Of course, Paul George is out. Of course, Joel Embiid is out. Quick question: who's played more games this season, Paul George or Joel Embiid? The answer is Joel Embiid. Surprisingly, you would think that it would be Paul George, but it's not. 76ers fans are pissed off, of course. Let's check out what the Sixers fans are saying. City Baller 28, you spent like 3 or 4 weeks to avoid injuries like this because Paul George has been out the past few weeks. You're taller than most players. Stop trying to break them down from the logo like Maxi and work inside post. Turnarounds and 2 foot plant jumpers. I don't understand why you playing like a 23 years old. Why you playing like you're 23 years old? I agree with you, City Baller. It makes no sense to me. Paul George does have he has a nice ISO game. He used to be one of the best ISO players in the NBA. We'll get to his stats in a second. I think he's 34, 35 years old now. So, like City Baller's saying, your game could age pretty gracefully, Paul George. Just get down low. You have a really good mid post game. He could polish it off and make it even better so his game could age gracefully. As he's getting older, a lot of guys do that. It's what Kobe did. He used to be a crazy isolation scorer, make all sorts of crazy highlights. Not to compare Kobe to Paul George. Paul George is nowhere near Kobe, but when Kobe got older, he adapted his mid post game and his game aged pretty well. From his mid post work. Kobe would even get in the low post against guards when he was older. So I understand that with Paul George. City Ballers totally right, especially with the part you spent 3 or 4 weeks trying to avoid injuries, which he has done. He just spent a couple weeks off, and now he goes from probable to out in the game. Ralum just puts always out. I don't know what it is with Paul George. I don't know if the Sixers organization is being like overly cautious and saying, all right, Paul George, if anything hurts at all in any part of your body, just sit the game down. We're going to try to get you healthy again. But they've been doing that for what, 3 or 4 years now, however long it's been. And, just like Ralum says, always out. Paul George is still always out. And, you know, I agree with a lot of people. I don't think that Paul George loves basketball. I won't go so far to say, "Oh, this guy's making podcasts. He's not dribbling a ball 24 hours of the day. He's not practicing in the gym at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. This guy does not love basketball." I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say because you make a podcast or because you have a non-basketball related hobby that you do when you're not practicing or playing basketball. I wouldn't say for that reason that makes a player not love basketball or not be committed. It's more just Paul George's his body language, how he talks. He's so, I don't know if clueless is the word. He's so bad at, looking at something from someone else's point of view because he says all this stuff on his podcast. Not so much the fact that he's doing a podcast, it's just more how he acts, just how he wants people to kind of feel sorry for him, or he acts like he's just always injured. There's nothing he can do when, I think a lot of us agree he could play through a lot of these injuries. If Paul George was out there with Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid himself, BJ Edgecombe, they could roll out a good playoff team if those guys can stay healthy. Money Mo says listed as probable out because he wasn't listed as questionable. That's another thing. I guess that's more on the organization than Paul George, but I don't know 100%, but that's another bad thing because they should have listed him as questionable. Then he would have been ruled out, and everyone would have said, all right, he was questionable. It is what it is. But to list him probable and then have him sitting out the game, from my point of view, the optics look like Paul George just chose to sit out, or who knows what happened. It makes it look like he could have played, but just chose not to play for whatever reason. Cade McNernan, either the Lord above entire life mission is to scorn Philly fans, or there is a real problem within the building. I agree with you, Cade. I think it's something more within the building, in the front office, general management. But I mean, what are you gonna do? Just fire everyone, clean the entire house? Entire life mission is to scorn Philly fans. There's a real problem in the building. We're in November and the Sixers are already running process lineups. If you don't get what he's saying basically trust the process. They're already tanking in November, it feels like. Not that they are. They were doing good with VJ Edgecombe. The team looked good with him and Tyrese Maxey out there, but now he's basically saying they're running process lineups because Embiid is out, Paul George is out. Um, that's what he's saying, honestly. He's basically insinuating that they're sitting Paul George out because they're trying to lose games on purpose to get another high draft pick or whatever it's going to be. But he's basically insinuating, hey, Paul George, you're healthy, you're good to play, you're sitting out so we can trust the process again. And he's saying, bro, I'm tired of tanking. I'm tired of the process. Philly fans, they're great fans. They're really passionate, but they were patient. They trusted the process for I can't even count how many years now. Feels like it's been 10 years now. They've been trusting the process. They were really patient with it, and now the process it's over. You should be competing for championships at this point. That's how Philly fans are looking at it, and they're not. In my opinion, the process did work. If the goal of the process was to tank and just be a terrible team and get some very high draft picks to build the team around, the process worked. They got Joel Embiid, they got Ben Simmons back in the day. Ben Simmons is doing whatever he's doing these days. Joel Embiid is still in Philly. He's still a really good player when he can be healthy. So in my opinion, the process worked as far as tanking your ass off and getting high draft picks. They did that, but now, whatever you want to say, they just picked the wrong draft picks. Joel Embiid was always injured coming out of college. Now he's injured some more. Ben Simmons looked really good coming out of LSU, and then, he has his back injuries. I'm sure he does have injury problems, and then he doesn't seem to love the game. Just from a mental standpoint either. So that is what it is. But yeah, McKernan, how is everyone always injured? I don't get it either, Cade. I really don't get it, bro. MVP Castro, we can't have nice things. Y'all sure can't, Philly fans. I'm sorry, guys. TV movie fan, how does someone go from probable to out? Makes no sense. That's like what I was saying. List him as questionable, and then if he's out, no one's going to be surprised. If you're probable, that was just yesterday. I'm making this video on Tuesday when they're supposed to play. He was listed probable just one day ago, just yesterday. It was an ankle thing. So just like TV Movie Fan 30 says, it makes no sense, bro. How are you probable? That's basically saying, hey, my ankle feels good. I should be good to go tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and his ankle miraculously swelled up again. I guess that's more on the front office. Just list him as questionable, and that would at least make people like TV Movie Fan and myself be questioning how that makes any sense. Just list him as questionable. Harrison Grimm, at this point, I'm used to the weirdness regarding Embiid and the injury report. Same with me. I'm expecting Embiid to be injured, but I wouldn't be shocked if the NBA says something about Paul George going from probable to out in the span of hours. He tweeted this yesterday or like the night before the game, so this was before Paul George had been listed as out. Harrison Grimm was already calling it, especially for a nationally broadcasted Cup game. Yeah, that's pretty bad as well. The the Emirates Cup, I was kind of iffy about it at first, but it's been a really badass thing for the NBA. Teams are really playing pretty much playoff style basketball. It's been really exciting. Yeah, he's completely right. If this happened with Embiid, we wouldn't be as surprised, I guess. But he called this before it happened. Paul George is going to go from probable to out in the span of hours, and unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Columbara, maybe we will see Embiid and George together by April when they're in 11th place because this team can't establish a rhythm with everyone out. I think he's just trolling. I mean, he's right. They can't establish a rhythm. When it was just Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe out there, the team looked pretty good. They got off to a good start, and now they're trying to get Embiid and Paul George kind of back in the groove of things. So they get them out there like we're looking good. We're starting to get some chemistry together. And Paul George says, "My ankle hurts, bro. I'm gonna sit this one out and make a podcast." I said it earlier. I'm not mad at Paul George for having a podcast, but that's just how it looks to people when you never play and you take podcasting more seriously than your actual job. CCFC 21, Maxi is left on his own again. while 130 million sits. Hilarious team. I think he's talking about kind of Embiid and Paul George. Or no, that's just the Paul George. That's just the Paul George $130 million contract. Again, it's not so much Paul George sitting out or Paul George being hurt. It's just when he sits out and he's hurt and then he gets on his podcast, oh, y'all don't understand, y'all don't get it, man, this and that. It's like, bro, I'm not in the NBA, so I don't get it from that standpoint, but we do get you not being dedicated to your job. And just from public perception, everyone sees you and it looks like you're not dedicated to your job. And then you get on your podcast and just keep kind of shoveling dirt on your own name. I think that's what people get more frustrated about. Embiid will miss another game. We won't so much get to that, but Paul George, his stats for this season. So he is 35 years old. Just like the one comment said, get in the mid post, bro. You have a cold mid post game. Paul George, in seriousness, he has a beautiful game. When he was in Indiana, even at points when he was in Philly, the Clippers, he gets into his ISO bag. It's just disgusting. 4 or 5 years, however many years it is, Paul George already has a mid post game. He can already do some pretty good stuff in the low post against smaller guards. So it just makes no sense to me, bro. Just get in the post. You'll be injured less. You'll be more effective. It'll make it easier for Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe to play out on the perimeter if you just slot down into the mid post. And it just makes no sense. But yeah, Paul George has played 3 games so far this season. Yeah, I just have no explanation for it. He has played the 3 games. He's averaging 13 points a game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. His splits, 31% from three, 38% from the field, whatever his free throws are. He's only played 3 games, so it's a really small sample size. But I will say, if Paul George and Joel Embiid can get out there and be fairly healthy and give you a healthy playoff run with Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, the rest of the guys on the team, I could see them getting at least to the second round and giving Cleveland a good series. If they played against Cleveland, maybe they match up against the Knicks. But if Paul George, Embiid, Edgecombe, Maxey are all healthy, I could see them being a legit contender at least to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But they just can't keep the boys healthy out there. Joel Embiid has played in 6 games so far this season, so he's played in twice as many games as Paul George. Joel Embiid is averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, 1.5 blocks on 46% field goal shooting. So, Embiid and Paul George, they are older, they are injury prone, but when they're out there and healthy, they make the Sixers a better team. But they're just never healthy. With Embiid, we know Embiid has real chronic injuries. I've heard stories. Embiid gets done after the game. He takes off his giant knee brace. His knee is as big as like a volleyball. This from his own teammates, in the locker room. So I think Embiid does actually love the game. He tries to play through his injuries, but his injuries are just too bad. Where with Paul George, I think it's more a mental thing and just not loving the game. If he had a Kobe Bryant mentality, which I can't expect everyone to have, but if he had that mindset, I can guarantee you he would have played more games than 3 games so far this season, 41 games last season. Just just always injury prone, and then he gets on his podcast and he never says the right things to at least make his PR image with the fans and everyone else in the NBA better. So that's why people crap on his podcast so much. Like I said before, NBA players, they can have hobbies outside of the game. You don't have to be playing basketball, 24 hours a day. I understand that, but for Paul George to always be injured or, supposedly injured and then doesn't play, doesn't be gritty and grimy like the city of Philadelphia loves. Then he gets on his podcast and says, "Man, y'all don't get it. Y'all can never do what I do." It's those types of things that make people so frustrated with Paul George. So, good luck to Philadelphia and the Philly fans. I think they have a solid team. It's just if Embiid and Paul George can get healthy for playoff time. But please like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 7 million subscribers. Let me know what you think about PG, just the Philly team in general. And we'll see y'all next time. Peace.